My Life Between Lives story from Newton Train Institute practitioners.
I see a whole change in the thrust of searching for answers about who we are and why we're here. And I think it's wonderful, and I just hope the movement continues to expand.
Let us expand the universal consciousness together with a My Life Between Lives story presented by the Michael Newton Institute.
Welcome, beautiful friends. This is My LBL Story. My name is Ekomananda. Today, my special guest is Paul Orant. Paul is a best-selling author of Essential Healing, who is based in New York City. Paul is also an award-winning master hypnotherapist, who is also a hypnotherapy instructor who has worked in the field over 30 years. Paul is the former president and education director of the Michael Newton Institute. A big, warm welcome to Paul. Thank you for coming to the show.
Really, thank you for having me. It's nice to be with you again.
And I'm very honored to have this conversation again and get to know life between life therapists intimately. Working in the field for over 30 years, what sort of changes do you see in regression sessions and in LBL sessions?
Well, I think there are many. One is that people don't think that hypnosis or altered state is so weird. People are less afraid of it, right? There's been more scientific research done on it. It's more generally available. It's more generally accepted. So I think that was a big hump. And what I saw when I started LBL sessions in 2001, it was taking a long time to have a person achieve the state they needed to go into LBL. And some of that was my limited skill level, I'm sure. But my impression is that people in general, that consciousness has evolved or shifted, raised, and that people are able to achieve that state more directly, more quickly, more efficiently. And so the long induction that Michael Newton was having to use many years ago is generally not so necessary. And I don't mean to try to shortcut it, because you definitely need the depth and state, but I'm finding it's much easier to get there and into that state, into soul state. The other thing is that younger people are coming. Like Michael talked about not doing this with someone under 30, right? He didn't set it as hard and fast rule, but his experience was that it didn't work very well for them because they didn't have enough life experience or know themselves well enough. But now we see people much younger coming. And so, yes, we want to be aware how familiar is the person with themselves, what's their consciousness, but there's no age limit, if you will. So I think that that's another beautiful thing too, is we have people that are coming that are younger, that are more prepared for this work, that really want it. And why make them wait? Well, if you can have someone who's in their 20s or even late teens learn what they can learn from an LBL and live their life from that, rather than when they're 60 or 70 coming in and having already lived most of their life, right? It's transformational for the person and for the planet. So I think that going in quicker, more deeply is something we're seeing. So we don't need as long an induction. We see it working more effectively with younger people. And the methodology that Michael developed was brilliant. I was doing a more Brian Weiss method before I met him and worked with him. I was doing induction straight to past life, and that could be very effective. But he said, no, go through childhood, explore some there. Go through the womb, explore some there, then go to past life, explore some there, and then go into spirit. It's a beautiful, thorough, effective methodology that he developed. And it changed me and my practice so profoundly. I really thank him for that. And what we're seeing in the last 5 or 10 years is that people don't necessarily need to go through all of that to get into spirit. That there are alternative entry points into spirit. I just finished the pre-LBL training where we talked about this. So the people that come for the LBL training have more preparation for it. So if you think about it, when you get someone into the womb, childhood, and then in utero, they're preparing to come to be born, but where are they coming from? Where have they been before they entered this body? They've been at home. They've been in spirit. They've been planning this life. They've been with their guides, right? They spent a long time to prepare for this. And so it's also possible to regress someone through childhood into the womb, explore there, and then from the womb, enter spirit, and then proceed with the LBL procedure that Michael developed. So that's something that's, I think, much more available now than it was when he was working, finding his way with this.
Well, the whole world is awakening. And so we can see that in our clinical practice. And thanks for pioneers like you who have brought the continuity of Michael Newton's gift to us, to the younger generations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. You know, something that Michael didn't really touch on, but I've had to wonder, he must have run into it, is NDEs, people's near-death experiences. I was once in Sydney presenting at a hypnotherapy conference, and I was doing a live demonstration of past life regression. And there were a few hundred people in the room watching this, and I took a volunteer from the audience to be my demonstration subject to regress back to past life. And I started him off with induction and then go back to some pleasant or enjoyable childhood memory. Even though I gave him that direction, that's not where he ended up. I was so confused at first, Apple, because he said, I'm on the ceiling. They're working frantically. Ooh. The doctor, he's sweating. He's working as fast as he can. They're frantic. They don't think they're going to be able to save me. Help me understand what's going on here. I'm on the ceiling of the operating room. I've had heart surgery and my heart stopped and they're trying to resuscitate me. They've already sewed me up, but they have to open again and they're trying to resuscitate me, massage my heart. I don't think they're going to be very successful, he said. And then he floats down the hallway from the operating room after describing everything that's going on with the team there, frantically trying to save his life. He floats down the hall to a waiting room that he's never been in, and he describes the furniture, and he describes the carpet that they had in this waiting room accurately. And his wife is in that waiting room, and they've just told her they're not sure he's going to survive. They're trying to get his heart going again. And she's crying. She's so upset. They had 11 children. And she was going down the list in her mind about who to contact, kind of start the phone call tree, if you will, and about the life insurance, right? And so he was a little grumpy that she's thinking about life insurance while he's in there dying. But he was able to talk to her that night, and she confirmed the carpet, chair, and her thoughts about the kids and the life insurance too. So this was an unintentional regression to a near-death experience, right? I didn't know how to really facilitate it on into spirit. They did resuscitate him, and then on the way back to from the waiting room, the operating room, there was a little girl in the hallway that could see him, even though he was out of body. Children often can see these things, right? Animals and
Yes.
children. So she saw him, they had a little interaction, and then he went back into his body, right? So, I mean, my point with this story was, it was a shock to me, but good news is that there are many people that have had out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences that they don't even remember. Some remember them and some don't remember, but even the ones who remember, there's much more detail that can be captured through regression therapy. I actually did a pilot study with cardiac arrest patients with a cardiologist up near Toronto. And I regressed them back to a few moments before their heart stopped, and then took them through the process till they were resuscitated and even after. And it's amazing the details that they describe about the ambulance drivers, about the procedure done to resuscitate them, about things people say while they're in coma, because they're often induced into coma after, so they can be on the intubator, be intubated. They don't die. Body's clinically dead, according to medical terms, but they're very conscious, very aware, can tell you very much what's going on.
And so the key message that is, through such profound experience to uncover people's near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, is to understand and experience that we don't die.
I think so. I spoke with a endodontist the other day here, and he comes from a very scientific, agnostic family. Spirituality, religion is not a part of their lives. Parents are both physicians, as is he. And he found Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls, in Spanish. And he said, I don't fear death anymore. He said, from that research that Dr. Newton did, I don't fear death anymore. I know that we live, but I would say even better than knowing that or believing that or understanding that from reading, have your own experience to know within yourself that, yes, the body does die, but I continue. So that it's not, people believe in reincarnation, right? But I think it's different to believe in reincarnation and to know that the soul survives the body, that consciousness survives the body, that we live again, to really know it from your own experience. And that's the power of LBL or NDE regression.
I think the impact such an experience that bring to any person, from knowing that we don't die, the soul do not die, our essence never die, is that they're going to live their life differently. They're going to embrace every single thing. They're going to live life with more awareness and love and peace within. And that is healing. That is the essence of our work.
Yeah, I really believe. It's hard to have low self-esteem. It's hard to hate others when you have a higher spiritual perspective, when you're operating more from soul. Right? I mean, we still have egos, we still have challenges. Not to say we're not human, we are, but to remember that we're much more than that.
It helps to dissolve these energies that no longer works for us. Remove incompetency, inconfidence, and that sadness, trauma, losses, all of those emotions that do not serve our purposes.
Or at least know that that's what we're working on. I think so for my own personal LBL, I was really having great difficulty in my life at one point in time, in a difficult relationship. And I didn't know the solution. I didn't know how to resolve it. And so I did an LBL that helped me solve it. And in the LBL, I was shown a deep soul lesson and reminded that I'd been working on this soul lesson through at least 3 other previous lives. They showed me in the LBL 3 previous lives where I was more or less repeating the same pattern that I was experiencing in this life. So it wasn't my partner, it wasn't bad marriage, it wasn't whatever things I thought it was. It was really a deep soul lesson. And my guide said, you're just not getting this. Really then showed me those lives, became so clear what I needed to do. That didn't mean it was easy to do it, because I still had the mind, the ego, the human conditioning, that it felt very natural to behave that way. But you know what? example, beyond the human conditioning in mind, I had the belief in my soul that was erroneous, that was really a mistake, that this is the way it had to be, that belief was so strong. It wasn't just in my mind, it was in my soul, and I carried it through lifetimes. And it was through the LBL that I was finally able to break that pattern. Honestly, it took me 6-9 months knowing this to be able to really live it. I was so accustomed to self-sacrifice, so accustomed to caretaking others. I was so accustomed to, I don't matter, but I should make other people happy, sort of thing, that had led to difficult lives in the past and was repeating in this life. But to do it differently felt so wrong because I was so used to it the other way. And that's something I'll tell the people that I work with. When it feels wrong, that's when you know you're really on track. When you're not being the pleaser or the whatever your pattern is and doing it differently. At first, to your ego, your mind, it feels like it's wrong. Oh no, I shouldn't do that. Putting myself first is selfish, right? But there wasn't that at all. It was really a learning. And so the LBL wasn't the magic wand that just suddenly changed everything, but it gave me the overview that I needed, the clear understanding. And then it was up to me really to do something with that. And it took me time to do that, to change my life, to change my behavior, to change how I was in the world. But saved me from repeating another lifetime and probably more.
What a profound sharing. Because many of my clients, they ask this question: is there any patterns that I'm repeating that I'm not aware of? So I guess between life therapy is the answer.
Especially because of the way Michael wrote the books. They're engaging, they're interesting, they're profound, they're inspiring. And I think people come in sometimes thinking it's going to be really fun, like going to an amusement park in the spirit world. And there can be these aspects of it that are just so delightful, so wonderful. I really take time with that. But these hard soul lessons over lifetimes can be hard things to look at. You know, the soul can be stubborn. The soul can be confused. The soul can be embarrassed to look at. And so I just really ask people, be as open as possible. Take this into the very depths of your soul, as deep as possible, and then go from there. It's deep work. It's not magic. Well, it's magical, but it's not magic.
Is the lesson getting harder if the soul does not learn it from a past life?
Does it get harder? I guess there are cases that this may be true. I don't think it necessarily gets harder. From my perspective, being someone in my chair looking at lifetimes of repeated behavior is hard to watch. That's hard because you so much want it for them, right? But you can't do it for them. You can't, even their guides can't make it happen. They can only help them get there. And it isn't always instant. But I don't know that it gets harder. You know, I had someone that came in that had such great suffering in her life. I mean, you name it, she'd struggled with it and wondered why life was so hard, why she suffered so much. That was really her main question. And when she met her guide said to her, "You suffer so much because you believe that's the only way you can grow."
Wow.
I realized, yeah, wow. So we can grow through suffering, but it doesn't have to be through suffering that we grow.
What a profound learning. Just that wise words downloaded from the session. Because that's why we stick to a pattern. We thought that's the only way to love. We thought that's the only way to forgive. We thought that's the only way to grow. All of those belief systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it became clear to me that I work in more traditional clinical hypnosis on people's belief systems. But I realized, especially from that session, the soul carries beliefs as well. And that's really part of what reincarnating is about, is working on those beliefs that are causing trouble, working on those beliefs that are not true. but held very strongly.
Well, if the soul has certain belief, then we would definitely have to get in there and dig deeper and have the soul to speak and tell me what that's a thing that we're not doing to live a happy and peaceful life. We need to know that.
Yeah. Something that Michael Newton said after the second LBL training. He really wanted to offer this education, this training to licensed therapists. And what he realized after running it a couple of times, that it was often the very talented, experienced, licensed therapists that struggled the most with this work because they were used to being a therapist. And rightly so. That was their job. That was their work. That was their expertise. That's their profession. The big difference in LBL work is we're very skilled at achieving soul state. We're very skilled at moving them into spirit. But once they're in spirit, that's where we as therapists step back and leave the work to the best therapists that aren't on this planet, but are in spirit. And a guide, a wise being, a council member, a loved one in spirit has a much higher perspective and often much more experience than me or another experienced therapist. So the big shift, and I talked with Michael about this because I was confused the first time I saw him work. Because many things he kind of skipped over, and I thought, well, why isn't he addressing this? Why isn't he diving into it? Because my therapist said, go for that, right? And he said, in his very fatherly way, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Oh, you just don't understand," right? Not critical, but very, very fatherly. And then he explained to me that he didn't want to deal with all of that because he knew that he wasn't missing it, he wasn't neglecting it, but he knew that once the person was in spirit, that their guides on a much higher level would work with them on it rather than him doing it with them. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in this work in LBL work, is to step back as a therapist, use every skill you have to help get them into that state, to get them into spirit. And then we step back and we honor, we hold space. Maybe we remind them of their questions or why they're there. But that's where we really turn it over to guides, angels, masters, council beings, and loved ones. On the very, very highest level, healing and transformation and therapy is done there in spirit and not by us.
An absolute pleasure to have you and learning from your wisdom, your spiritual connection, and you are a true master. I am honored. Thank you for coming.
Good luck with your next one.